but
Switch over and let's get
go.
get the guys up
Let's get our
here.
panelists up.
So we have three panelists.
What the hell, Gene? What are you looking at?
I had a nice thing of scotch in my hand. Full disclosure.
Nobody make fun of anybody's pictures on any slide.
Oh, man.
These come right from LinkedIn. They're the responsibility of the people that put them up.
We've been cut short. Switch? Yeah.
Yeah, sit. Okay, there you go. Right on. That's better.
We have to talk really fast.
that way there, Gene.
So Gary, we'll let you introduce yourself first.
My name's Gary LaSasso. I'm with Amicus Therapeutics. We are a biotech company located in Cranberry, New Jersey. One of the things that, our goal as an organization or as a department is really to securely connect our users anyplace, anytime, any device. Securely is a key word, of course. And one of the reasons we do that is really we're a patient-focused organization. And if I can introduce technology that allows our scientists to collaborate more effectively, or our regulatory team to make submissions more efficiently, then we can get treatments in the hands of patients more quickly. And we deal with rare diseases, so it's really a very underserved population. And I'm just happy to come to events like this to learn about technology and then go back with use cases to learn how we can use video and collaboration more effectively for our patients.
Great. I'm Gene Pitts. I'm with JPMorgan Chase. I cover mid to bank. I'm sure you know all that. We cover 278,000 employees in 66 countries. We cover the conferencing and video streaming segments within the bank, which we've seen a lot of good success tying those things, how people communicate both synchronously and asynchronously together, so pretty excited about that. We're currently on a journey to reinvent our collaboration spaces, not just the rooms, but the experience at the desk, which we've been severely underserved with, so we're really excited about that. And just really happy to be here. One more stat about us. We are a very video-first culture. Our on-premises system did over 1.25 billion minutes this last year, and we'll continue to see more than that. And if we look at our adjoining systems, 2-to-1 video over audio, right? So we've really embraced that face-to-face, that video communication, and just really scratching the tip of that iceberg. So we need to see how we continue to grow that, get new features, go away from just video conferencing to something that's really true collaboration, right, in every sense of the word. So pretty excited about it, and looking forward to talking to everybody here about what they've got going on and what Poly has, and thank you guys.
Kevin Hyatt with Walt Disney Company. I've been with the company for almost 22 years, focusing on the collaboration tool sets. Echo a lot of these gentlemen's comments, as well as John and team for this morning. I think the focus for us is how do we evolve the user experience in the workplace? I think that's a big push for us moving forward. Here in New York, we're getting ready to build a brand new building for our New York employees, so it gives us an opportunity, which we get rare in this industry, to really kind of reset expectations. So we're going to try to use that as a big springboard moving forward.
So I'll open it up. Anyone here? I mean, I'm sure I have a number of questions myself, but even though I do know some of you, go for it.
I want to point out something that you mentioned and that you were talking about. So with the Poly gear, and you brought up your daughters, right?
Yeah.
And you threw up all those video apps, right? I think something that I'm most excited about is when we're all talking about conferencing today, it's really like, hey, we're going to meet, we're going to talk face to face. It's going to be a great experience. Get that emotional detail and everything, right? The reason that we're here. But like the way your kids are communicating, right? Particularly like TikTok, Snapchat, and all those like that video messaging piece.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. Yeah, that asynchronous piece, like how people are going to start to move away potentially from email to that video messaging, and how we keep all of that flow channel of content together for video messaging, that email replacement to other things, along with like the real-time communication. I think it's a big deal, and I'm really interested to see how that pulls together. And so, what's exciting me about the Poly stuff is that you've got that native app experience. So whatever vendor or solution we end up using, right? Hopefully it'll have like a lot of those things, whether it's that example or something else really pulled in. I think was pretty interesting.
I mean, I think the short form, right? So the short form video, I think everybody can echo that with, we're all video first types of companies, and I think the biggest push for us is, I mean, we are starting to see obviously shorter meetings. You know, instead of being 58 minutes, they're 42 minutes or 38 minutes. And I think, you know, you balance that out and you try to figure out, okay, how do you, gone are the days where we worry about the technology for the most part. Thankfully from our side, you know, the technology's not evolving. We're not worrying about SD to HD to, you know, all these different, and bandwidth and QoS and things that, I mean, some companies probably still worry about, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, for a video-first company, worry about some of these smaller things, which gives us an opportunity to focus on customer. Someone mentioned customer success and the evangelical solutions, where you know we have more people now bringing into the company that are actually customer success versus actually technical. So I think there's a balance where it gives us an opportunity to pause, look at different solutions, and say, okay, I'm not worrying about the technical part anymore as much as I used to 10 years ago.
What about, well, go ahead and go for it. Yeah, of
I'm
course.
Grace with EY. I'm curious, as far as, you say video first, did that come top down, or did it rise from?
It's both. I mean, you know, organically, I mean, again, to Sam's point, I mean, people coming into the companies today, they're expecting it, whether, again, it's the short form video or just the kind of that natural evolution. You know, thankfully, from our side, we've been lucky enough where we've never been questioned, knock on wood, somewhere, where around justification on why we're spending so much money on video. The rooms, building out all these rooms, you know, thankfully the prices have come down quite a bit. But, you know, on the flip side, we're not really, but we also see, you know, 47% year-over-year growth in video usage. So, and that's been 4 or 5 years plus.
And you guys were big to begin with.
I know.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I think there's, I can't speak well enough to it because we've been lucky, I guess, in the sense that where we've kind of made it or allowed it to happen. But, you know, some companies, you know, they are more restrictive, but, you know, we've been in a good situation.
And I can look back.
I just want to ask her, are you having any challenges with your adoption strategy? Is that why you're asking the question?
Yeah, and I think people are free to turn on their cameras.
Yes.
Well, you know, I stopped
I was
worrying about
curious.
that. I stopped worrying about that a couple of years ago. I think that the whole point was, you know, you try to reduce and rationalize the number of services that you know, provide as an IT organization, and you start eliminating solutions like audio conferencing, bridging, and certain platforms. And you know, if there's 10 people on a call and only 30% of them are joining via video, but they're using that standard UX or that standard app as the experience, my job's done. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to force somebody to shame them into turning on video. And you know, if we can standardize on the platform and make it ubiquitous across the board, I'm satisfied. Yeah.
So in our case, it was a top-down thing. Our CEO, I mean, we're a smaller company, but our CEO sort of demanded it amongst his senior leadership meetings, and then it sort of filtered down. But also, I mean, our journey's only been about really 5 years into video. We're a 15-year-old company, and in that 5 years, we went from, you know, a couple of carts that they would roll around into our few conference rooms that we had, you know, to, you know, building out conference rooms. So then when it became available, so I think it came from, you know, I think Kevin mentioned this, it really came both, you know, kind of met in the middle, but it did start from the top.
And we didn't really have good success until, because it was very much top down, until we really enabled the employees, right? The video phones at people's desks, right? We don't have a software solution, but the 200,000 video phones at people's desks, like when those became super easy to join video calls, I mean, it just took off from there, right? And the whole camera thing, like, kind of went away. That was just not part of our culture anymore. And people feel like if they're not on video, they're not part of the call. They're not part of the experience. They can't see people. They can't be read. They just get left out. And you know, maybe it's because they're eating lunch or whatever. But it really transformed. And everybody comes back to me saying, like, hey, like, this is just changing the way we do business. And for us, the next big step is really taking it outside of internal communications and making it really ubiquitous for people to talk to our clients and customers.
And I do think it depends on the business too, right? I mean, for our side, I mean, we have such a wide-ranging group of employees, from creatives to, you know, movie making to television to just, you know, standard office automation type of work. It is a little bit different compared to, you know, companies like JPMorgan or even Amicus, in the sense that, yeah, there's scientists in Gary's organization, but you know, I think it just really depends from the melting pot perspective how you kind of make it work.
I have a question regarding UX. You guys deal with that in an enterprise solution. My name is Chris, and with Stern. My question to you guys are, as you're embedded within the corporation leading this, what has changed for your corporate refresh? A program you decide today is great. Right? 10 years ago, that used to be a 10-year cycle. Could have been changing now. As things flip, as you see Sam's kids are using TikTok today, tomorrow it's
Something
Snapchat
else.
4. What do you guys, how is that adjustment being made on your end? Because for a lot of people, I was a former manufacturer, I've been consulting. How do you justify a change or spend when everything is going good, and then all of a sudden, generation XYZ, B4, whatever you want to add to it, steps in, and now there's something else. So that's my
Yeah,
question.
I think we've been able to, from a UX perspective, get to, 80% of the time anyway, one click to join. And what we're trying to now, move towards is sort of one action to share. So whatever that action is, I think in a few years with AI, it might be you walk into the room and you know it's me. For us, we tried to do BYOD rooms and it just didn't really work. Executives were like coming from meetings and plugging in. They were in a different room, different speakers and microphones, and it's like, now you got to, we got to straighten this out, And but so for now, I mean, HDMI is, there's their action right now. And
That's a physical one. What I'm talking
Yeah,
about is
yeah.
the decision to go with brand X.
Sure.
Product X.
Well,
That used to
we-
be a 10-year commitment. Now
Sure.
you're shortening those cycles. That's the question I'm.
Yeah, I can. You don't mind if I? Yeah. So I'll answer it correctly this time. No, so we just opened a new building in Philadelphia. It's a gene therapy center of excellence where we do some collaboration with Penn Medicine. Maybe about 20 conference rooms, some more huddle rooms, things like that. We ended up, when we had to make the decision to pull the trigger, nothing was available on the poly side. We ended up using the Dolby units, and we're a Blue Jeans shop, so we did room as a service. So I made a 1-year commitment, because if in a year, as I get to evaluate some other things, I can just rip those things out there and put something else in with the price point. It's pretty simple to do.
I would quickly add, and I think that was one thing that was not missed in your presentation, but goes underserved, is the flexibility that now offers. For us, we adopted cloud services very, very early on, 6-7 years ago. So we're kind of in that kind of turning point situation now, where we do have to manage a significant change management solution if we would shift. But I think from the hardware perspective, I think Sam's right in the sense that, these vendors are providing the user, they provide the hardware. And you know what, if, whatever Zoom's going to be 5 years from now, it gives us flexibility that we don't have to worry about it anymore. And again, for two reasons. One is because thankfully, the hardware costs have come down so much that it makes it, the barrier to entry is a lot easier, but it also gives us the flexibility to change as needed.
And to that, much of the hardware, you can purchase it. It's so affordable. If it doesn't work out, much of it can be reused, like port replication. You can get your speakers going through your USB, your camera, your mic.
Yeah, I look at it different. I was going to say it too is, I've kept the same budget for the last 3 years, but I've tripled my refresh for the rooms. Just because, again, the barrier of entry is much, much lower. Because everybody always asks us, it's like, well, why aren't you guys looking at going to software-based solutions? And I'm like, because I knew that the price was going to come down on the hardware endpoints, and they're a heck of a lot easier to manage. They're much more robust and gives us the flexibility like a poly solution can give us. That it's a no-brainer. And especially if I can justify keeping a same flat budget for 3 years and refreshing or triple my number.
And your growth was how much?
47%.
A year over year for 3 years.
Yeah.
I got a question for those guys. Hi, guys. As you talk about room refreshes, how's AV as a service kind of factoring in on that? Are any of the other end users in the room thinking of AV as a service? How's that
Yeah, I mean, I'll say we take a very heavy-handed approach in our design, right? And one that, you know, a few of my partners here, that we strive to keep very big global consistency on, right, Chris? Because you were talking about how do you move to the next platform and stuff, and AV services. Like, we are crazy about consistency, and almost to our detriment, right? Because, hey, we might be cutting off a few features and a few other things, but keeping that consistency for our users so that they travel from room to room within a building or between campuses or things like that, they get that same common experience, right? That's what's really driving adoption for us. So we don't do much on going out to services with AV vendors or things like that, because we just haven't found, even with like the global vendors, right, to have that consistency, right? That we need to take that approach. We need to work with the manufacturers, you know, with the design groups to come up with those standards and be, you know, like insanely rigid with those things, right? So it's something that we maybe bring internal a lot more than others.
So when I say AV as a service, more like software as a service, and so you're, for lack of a better term, renting the equipment. So the hardware that's being implemented in your refresh, 2020, let's just say 2022 comes around and new hardware comes into play. Are you guys even factoring that into it at all, or you guys are just ready to go into the pocketbook or the person, grab out that checkbook and cut a whole new set?
I mean, it's changed a little bit just because it kind of partly switches from a CapEx to an OpEx model, which makes it a little bit sometimes more difficult. Again, knock on wood, we've not had any major issues asking for funding, but it does kind of change the model. We've toyed around with the leasing, but on the flip side, I mean, we sweat assets for 4 or 5 years and we're done. But to Eugene's point, I'm on the total opposite side of the sense of, I mean, I don't want to say it's the wild, wild west, but my issue ends up being is, you know, we kind of chase technology, you know, best of breed type of models. And what I want to get to is a more standardized platform so that, and instead of doing it just kind of, you know, first in, first out from an age perspective or a refresh, I'm now trying to focus on saying, okay, let's do it by campuses and let's do it by locations because it generalizes the support model. But from a cost perspective, I honestly, again, at least us two, probably not too worried about the cost perspective as much as maybe some other companies.
I also want you to keep in perspective the conversation that Sam pointed out to you that, and you know, as soon as we're done with this, with the panel discussion, we're going to take you guys on a tour of some of the new stuff that we're showing. When an endpoint installs in 2 minutes and costs $1,500 and doesn't require any, you know, core drilling or any other major assets, it's not as much of a big deal to say, you know, do we really need to lease something at that price? Or you know, it's with the prices dropping, yes, you're going to still have that problem in auditoriums and in larger rooms and in big integrated boardrooms, but for your scale deployments, we're not talking about $500,000 rooms anymore.
I would just quickly add also that, you know, we'll always have dedicated on-site people in these regions that provide that level of support. But, you know, again, we're training them to be more customer success and advocacy versus actually a technical liaison, because again, the technical issues pretty much go away in a lot of these platforms. So I'd rather, you know, teach them from a customer success perspective and, you know, champion the change and the technology. So, and that's been a big success for us as well.
I have a user experience question. Michael Goldman, CDA, and it's a two-part question. The first piece of it is, on the experience side, what are you doing, or what methods are you using to capture, was it really a good experience, and think about the emotion of the people in the meetings versus the system worked, and they like this feature or that feature. That's the first piece of it, because I'm always curious as to how people define experience. The second half of it is, every time I hear people talk about experience, it's how many button presses did I have, or, you know, what's the touch panel click or the wire in the table. But I'm wondering if you are looking at some of the other features that come out of the collaboration platforms that would truly make the meeting experience better. For example, transcription. Right? If you're in an intense meeting and there's 12 people and you're going back and forth constantly and you're trying to manage the conversation, it's really hard to take notes. So a lot of the collaboration companies are talking about, hey, we've got transcription as a feature. That's just one. Yeah. But are you looking at those types of feature sets and providing those tools back to the participants and seeing if it's helping make the meetings more efficient and more productive? And how does that play into the UX conversation at your firms?
I'm going to answer your second part.
Sure.
The first one, whatever. Sorry. Recording and transcription are something that I cannot offer my end users today, right? It's a hodgepodge across many platforms. Everything's incomplete. There's no editing, no real playback, no distribution. It's just a mess, right? So we talk about short form video messaging and that piece and that stuff, along with live captioning, transcription services, all the AI and ML stuff on top of that, just surfacing, the action items out of that hour-long piece of text, right? I mean, that to me is one of the most transformative things that we have, right? The thing that we're looking for in Zoom, just to be able to record myself in any kind of context, whether it's just me or a one-on-one or a team meeting or a town hall or any of those things, will just absolutely be a game changer. So we see that as being a major, major thing. And there's so many of those kind of knock-on services once you have those fundamentals that I think are really going to be quite fantastic, right? And how do we gauge the experience, right? I mean, you can say how few button clicks did they take to do it? How much did they adopt the new platform? And I'm trying to displace 6 other platforms down into one. As that's a certain measure. You've got the easy things like the after the meeting, 5-star ratings, the NPS stuff. We do the baselines with enough people to see hey, how did you like brand A solution versus now brand B that we put in? All those things, right? We can't put enough attention towards that and really listening to the end users about what they're looking for. And I think there are a lot of times they're very good about telling you their problem, maybe not the exact solution, but we just want to be able to deliver quickly, and these cloud solutions are really giving us those capabilities.
I mean, I think there's a big issue for what you're talking about, Michael, is the barrier to entry is really challenging from a company perspective, just because it's twofold. From the vendor side, they're learning just as quickly as they can to kind of become experts in that space, whether it's AI or ML or just the smart meeting concept. And then I agree with Eugene. I think on the flip side is, figure out what we can get from a user sentiment perspective and continue to iterate and leverage on that. That's far easier than hoping and waiting that a company is going to be able to provide a smart meeting experience, beyond the fact that it'll be impossible for us to get it approved because of, legal and security issues. But, that by itself is going to be a big barrier.
We do survey people. I don't think we do it often enough, but on the flip side of that, we have other groups in our company that are surveying people also, HR especially. So it's, we don't want to overburden them with, another 5-minute survey, another one. We're just getting them now with evaluations of people and stuff like that. So I have to kind of be careful when we do it. I do think we can do a better job of surveying sort of after meetings, a little bit more than the 1 to 5. Whether it's good or not, but some of those things, and we have piloted some of the advanced features with transcription and translation and those kind of things. Frankly, not great success with our groups when you get a group of scientists in a room, and that's who we're really trying to use it with most. And accents and things like that. It's not doing a great job right now. So we're still searching for a solution that might work as far as that goes.
I've not found anyone that's had success with it, but I'm curious because there's so much hype and so much discussion about it, and I wonder how much of it is real and driven by end users like yourselves, or whether it's purely being driven by the manufacturers.
Well, I think it's the other side. It's not driven by us. I see the benefit of it because I see how it could impact certain meetings or training or. We're trying to train people in that one native language in other countries, and it'd be great to do a live translation kind of thing. So we do look at those things, but haven't had a lot of uptake in usage of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the feeling is it will get there.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And what's the alternative? We have 3 full-time captioners, translators on staff, right? But that only scales to 3 concurrent meetings. And if you can deliver to the thousands that are going on at any one point, right? You kind of just have to do this. So, we're looking at it. I feel like it's pretty sufficient for a one-on-one, but you get people with, crazy scientist terms and all this stuff, and talking over each other, it starts to fail immediately.
Yeah, and those you watch the Microsoft events where, they use Azure for that, or even Amazon from an AWS perspective. It's very purposeful on a lot of those demos. So you're right, when you start getting 12 people in a room, it's not going to
Have you guys tried it, just out of curiosity?
We've tried it, especially from our Chinese and Cantonese and teams, just from a language barrier perspective. To Gary's point, it's been moderately successful. But again, I think it'll get better. But that one will be easier to deploy than obviously like other things like transcription, things that are discoverable is going to be, yeah.
Thanks. This is not a question. This is a compliment, and I'd like to know a little bit more about how that part of the project developed. But Eugene, the Madison Avenue new retail banking is absolutely outstanding. I mean, I think anybody who's seen it, if you've gone down, what is it, 260 Madison, thereabouts, right? It's
390 Madison?
390. It's just share, if you can, about how you were able to do that with the compressed nature of the schedule. I know it's kind of in the brass tacks here, but.
Yeah, Dan, you want to pick that up, or I can jump in?
You go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with all these, and we've got a whole bunch of vendors and software and everything, really is around the content, right? And it's always that. And while, you know, it's running a newer platform for us, I might go in there and be like, well, this was a compromise we made and this other thing, right? You know, so it's the compromises that we might see from a critical nature, like, you know, from technical side and how we were able to reborrow other assets, but then like if everybody else walking by, it's like, oh, that looks amazing, right? I mean, you know, I think a lot of us are in this room because we love big TVs, and having a 100-foot rotunda video wall looks amazing, right? It does. So, you know, the team really pulled it together. The guys who took a new slant on the content strategy were able to get some new stuff and leverage some old stuff to really pull it together, and it looks great. We've got some other ones. I don't know why we keep building ones that are internal that nobody ever sees, right? But you know, we've done a whole bunch of internal ones, and we keep trying to push the bar. You know, Dan's boss here, Rose, Dan Jarrett's boss, Rose, part of our team, like really is like, you know, we need a better user experience for these events. And I would say like until a year ago, we would have an event, right? 16:9 PowerPoints. And now, like, one of the internal things that we built, a 100-foot wide video wall, 12 feet high, looks really great. But we're actually talking about the experience when people walk into the room, during the event, when they're leaving, you know, opening content, all these other things, right? And, you know, we took a whole bunch of bumps on the way. But, like, you know, whether it's a retail space, which is pretty awesome and can change, or to the internal stuff, right? You know, it's, you know, we're having at least the right discussions about this stuff, right? So, yeah, the 390 branch, you know, in particular, you know, I think we did a good job, but we've got a whole bunch of other stuff, and Greg here, you know, is helping us define a lot of the newer strategies and thinking as we move forward.
And I think, just to add to that, I think that comes back to the, you know, is the day of the integrator dead? It comes back to that use case in the 390 branch and some of the other stuff around, some of the partners that we leverage around that.
Right.
You know, on the key spaces really comes into play, right? So the standard stuff is more kind of hang and bang, but
Right.
you know, when you get into the 390 and other experience kind of driven spaces, that's where a good integration partner comes into play.
I also compliment the fact that you took a risk and you went outside of the typical mold of integrators, and you know, you brought in somebody who's involved in sports integration and I think that had a lot to do with the success of what you guys accomplished there. It's different.
Yeah. Do you have the same people doing the big stuff? Are they installing Huddle Room?
No.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Do you have people installing huddle rooms, or are you doing it yourselves?
I'll take that as good.
Come on, Dan.
So a bit of both is the honest answer. But more and more we're seeing them as network endpoints. So if we looked kind of, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we would go to an integration partner to do that for us. But more and more it's becoming part of the technology installation. So we would use a network integrator or a network partner to do that for us, where we can't do it ourselves. Yeah. So a bit of both.
Because it's everybody's working for IT now, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's working for IT.
All right, so before I let this devolve much further than it already has, this has been some great conversation. So Sam, thank you. Our panel, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just to give everybody a heads up, we we are running a little bit late today, but I don't mind. If you guys don't mind, we can spend an extra half hour here. So if you, I'm gonna omit the break. If anybody needs to go on a break, you know where the restrooms are, feel free. If you look at your badges, each badge has a beautiful little color-coded dot on it, and we're offering 3 sets of tours. If you're a blue dot, oh, it's Sam. Sam, did you know you're the blue dot?
No.
You're the blue dot, Sam, and you're starting with the Zoom room.
Okay.
Okay? If you have a yellow dot, we're starting with the teams, and Dan, you're taking care of that one. Dan, raise your hand.
Yes.
And if you're a red dot, where's Caitlin?
Yeah, you guys mentioned your.
Let's have Caitlin's group. Just
Are you?
red dot, go down to the other side.
Blue.
No. How are
Too fast, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Goodbye. All those questions I spent time.
Yeah, I know, none of them came up.
Oh,
How are you? Nice to
Back here in the half an hour to
There's
have
all
the
sorts
prizes.
I was warned about. Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Great job.
Oh,
You know what you're gonna get in front of we're doing stuff like that. A lot of them you did a great job. I'm Gary. Nice to meet you.
we'll stay in touch. I'm definitely going to.